Happy Friday, everybody, or is it? We're looking at another pretty red day across the board. Here behind me on TradingView's heat map, you see a majority red. Now I want to show you a couple of things on the SPY. We're also going to get into Bitcoin. I want to get into some Bitcoin news. M2 is expanding, and that is a good sign for hard assets like Bitcoin. I also want to feature a Wulf stock or TeraWulf. While I don't own this, I want to show you where I'd consider picking some up on the chart. Now, if you guys get something useful out of this video, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Check out the links down below for some free stocks and cryptos. And first off, let's look at the SPY. Now, I want to show you a few things. First off, today we do have a break of our ascending trend here. We actually did gap down, and now we are under this ascending trend, this ascending support. It may flip and become a resistance, and we may in fact be looking at the top here. We also have something else interesting that happened somewhat recently at this top here. We had an RSI divergence, a bearish RSI divergence. We have lower highs on the RSI, however we have higher highs on the chart. And we did start dropping. We also have a sort of broadening descending channel to keep an eye on. You can see that we are respecting this descending support. We'll see if we get a bounce here and a test of this ascending support, this green line, before we find rejection on this blue line here or start a new pattern altogether. But I do think we might see the SPY continue to trend down. We do have rate cuts coming, and it's not just because inflation is coming down, it's because we're getting some poor economic data. Are we going to be able to enact a soft landing? Are we going to be able to avoid a recession? That's the million-dollar question. Now, while we have had false reads on RSI divergences before on the SPY, these typically do always mark a top. But keep in mind, there are false reads at times. But look back here. Back in March of 2024, we saw the RSI dropping here, but the price was rising, and then shortly after we did drop. We pulled back down under 500 from about 525. Here's another RSI divergence from 2023. You'll see the price was rising, RSI dropping. That did mark a top, and we fell. Another one back here in 2021. Price was rising, RSI was cooling down, momentum was waning, and that did mark the top. Again, back here in 2020. Hard to see right now, but RSI dropping, price rising, marked the top. So perhaps this is the RSI divergence that marks the top. Perhaps it's another false read. We do occasionally get those. Being where we are in the Fed rate cycle, being that we're starting to see poor economic data, jobs, housing, I personally would not be all that surprised to see this in fact be the top and see a little bit of a downtrend for a while. And that could present some great buying opportunities for some blue chips. I know I don't talk about them very often, but if we see some really good prices, some really good discount on some of the safest stocks out there, largest companies out there, profitable companies, you better believe we're going to be jumping on them. I do think right now the market overall is in a downtrend until we start finding support, but for now I do believe the trend is down. I do believe the market is starting to pull back. We know why the rate cuts are coming. It's not just because of inflation, it is because the economy is starting to tumble, and maybe the economy is starting to think, hey, the Fed can't create a soft landing. It's not going to happen. Who knows in the end? Now, I got another article I want to feature. I'll leave it down below for you, but it does go over a couple of things. Bitcoin and Ethereum tread water as Mt. Gox distributions continue. $3.1 billion worth of Bitcoin was transferred from Mt. Gox to BitGo. On Tuesday, so just a few days ago, over $3.1 billion of Bitcoin was transferred from Mt. Gox to BitGo, the last of 5 crypto service providers through which creditors can reclaim their funds. Currently, Mt. Gox holds about $2 billion or 32,990 Bitcoin, and this is soon coming to an end. Also, we had Coinbase and MicroStrategy report earnings yesterday. MicroStrategy reported a net loss, but they also announced that they purchased 12,222 Bitcoin for $805 million, bringing their total holdings of Bitcoin to 226,500 or $14.7 billion. And we are getting some rough data. We had some bad ISM data, and we had non-farm payrolls report showed the economy added 114 jobs when it was expected to grow 185,000. That's a pretty big difference there. And as for the ETH spot ETFs, it does look like outflows are slowing. And data from Soso Value shows that spot ETH ETF had inflows for 2 of the last 3 days after a sustained run of outflows. They had combined inflow of 33.7 million on July 30 and 26 million on August 1. And Grayscale's outflows have been slowing as well, between 133 million and 78 million over the last 3 days of outflows. Previously, we were seeing 2, 3, almost $400 million of outflows. So it's good to see the ETH Sell pressure is slowing. Hopefully we continue to see that coming into next week. And we have news that global liquidity hit an all-time high. Global liquidity has now reached an all-time high above 95 trillion, approaching $100 trillion. Historical data shows expanding liquidity precedes a Bitcoin bull run, potentially signaling a new price surge. And here's a chart of global M2 and Bitcoin's price. You can see the huge correlation. When M2 dips, Bitcoin does dip. When M2 grows, Bitcoin grows. Dip, dip, grow, grow, dip, dip. There is definitely a correlation there. As long as money is being printed, it does go into hard assets like real estate, like Bitcoin, etc. And speaking of Bitcoin, we are still following our ascending channel. We are still respecting it. We're above both our 50 and our 200 MA. Keep an eye on this roughly 62,500 area. It was a previous bouncing off point recently here. We might come down and retest it. If it fails, I do think we're likely to come down towards our ascending support on this channel. Next will be important to see if it holds or if this structure, this pattern is broken and we create a new direction. We previously got out of our long kind of a descending channel, descending resistance. Once we broke it, you see that clear reaction from the market. On the break of this pattern, it did play out and the market did react. Now, I believe we are in this uptrend. We have hit resistance multiple times. We have hit support a few times. I do think we can come down, test this support, and kind of validate this uptrend again. Make sure that we're still trending in it. Something we also caught was a bullish RSI divergence. Back here just a few days ago, we saw price dropping. However, RSI was rising. We hopefully have a good bit of support here, a bit of buyers ready to pick this up. Also, we're getting out of the Mt. Gox saga. A small fraction of that remains to be given to creditors. That might bring some more sell pressure, but once that's out of the way, we have overall net positive inflows from spot Bitcoin ETFs to expect and look forward to. We have, of course, global liquidity growing. Cycle-wise, we're in the best time for Bitcoin, typically right around this time. A few months after the halving is when the parabolic rally comes. You're going against the grain if you expect that not to happen. And you know, when we have announcements of companies like MicroStrategy buying Bitcoin by the thousands, when we have announcements of companies like BlackRock seeing multi-million-dollar inflows, adding thousands of Bitcoin to their assets under management at times, you got to realize, you know, there's only 450 Bitcoin being produced and issued per day. At some point, we will reach a supply shock. At some point, all this buying pressure will lead to no Bitcoin left. It is a matter of time. I also want to look at TeraWulf stock. It had a beautiful breakout, broke out of this long-standing pattern, and once we broke out of it, the market clearly reacted. We did gap up, and it does look like we are attempting to fill our gap here. If we can fill this gap, go down to 350, I think TeraWulf will be a great add right around 350. I do think this would hold out as support. Previous resistance point. When you look at the run we had, we are now down at the 0.618. And typically it is around that retracement level when you do see a rebound, a bounce. Perhaps we come down and fill our gap first. Be a fantastic opportunity to add to some TeraWulf. But right now it's in a downtrend. You might want to wait till it goes sideways. See how it does after the gap fill, how it does at these supports. We also have earnings coming up for TeraWulf. This is going to be the 12th of August. They're expecting a 35 million in revenue. This is a decrease quarter over quarter. That's all right. Many miners expected. This is going to be a growth year over year though, so that's good. When they give their report, they are still going to show year over year revenue growth. However, quarter over quarter will likely be a decline, but that's all right. This is the first quarter, basically reflecting the halving. Once we get through this quarter, we'll have this quarter to compare against future quarters, and comparatively, numbers will look better and better. But thanks as always for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoy your weekend, and I will see you on the next one.